Welcome to the SAP FICO certification course. Let's have a look about what is SAP. SAP is a German multinational software company known for making enterprise software to manage business operations. The acronym SAP stands for Systems, Applications and Products for Data Processing. It started back in 1972 when 5 ex-IBM employees started a small software company in Germany with just one customer. Now, SAP has grown over 190 countries with more than 290,000 customers, and they employ more than 70,000 staff members. It is the most valued company in the German stock exchange, and they have overtaken industry heavyweights like Volkswagen and Siemens. Now, in a country like Germany, where engineering has been renowned, a software company like SAP over the last 40 to 50 years have become the #1 company in Germany. So it just tells the achievement and how organically SAP has grown over the last few decades. It's also the third largest enterprise software making company after Microsoft and Oracle. Let's look at what is SAP R3 and SAP ERP. The old name given to SAP ERP was R3. Now the R stands for real-time data processing and the 3 is for the 3-tier architecture. So still SAP uses the same 3-tier architecture. That's the application layer, presentation layer and database layer. The new name given to it is SAP ERP. ERP, as you know, of course stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. So what do these 3 layers do? Let's start off with the middle one, the presentation layer. That's the SAP screen which you log into. It's called the SAP GUI or GUI, standing for Graphical User Interface. So it presents to the customer or the client, and that's the screen which you use to do all your transactions. The main graphical user interface screen. That's called the presentation layer. Now the database layer is where all the data is stored in SAP. All your master data and transaction data, all the information is stored in the database layer. The application layer is where all the transactions are processing. So it processes with the database, talks to the database, gathers all the information and processes. And all the processing is done in the application layer. So once again, the 3 layers: presentation layer is the main user interface screen which you see. The database layer is all the data is stored, and application layer is where all the processing is happening. Let's look at the SAP ERP modules. SAP has many modules. The most popular ones are the FI module, financial accounting, CO module, controlling, MM for materials management, SD for sales and distribution, PS for project systems, and HR for human resources. Let's look at what is SAP FI. The FI acronym comes from the financial accounting module of SAP. So financial accounting manages the financial transactions of the organization. Now, as you know, financial transactions are recorded in the balance sheet and income statement of an organization. So the subcomponents of this module is aligned with the balance sheet and income statement. Now you will understand in more detail when you look at the subcomponents of the FI module. First is the general ledger. General ledger is where all the financial transactions are happening. Accounts payable. So anything which you need to pay to someone is called accounts payable. For example, all your outstanding vendor payments. If you have any outstanding loans for the banks, is all called accounts payable. Accounts receivable. So anything which you need to receive from somebody is called accounts receivable. Now another accounts receivable category, you also have customer outstanding payments, some inventory payments, anything, some cash, petty cash. These are all usually under the accounts receivable section. So also might be called as non-fixed assets. Then you have asset accounting. Now the term asset accounting is specifically for the fixed assets. So fixed assets, of course, is your land, building, vehicles, anything to do with the heavy machinery. Is all your fixed assets. It's coming on the asset accounting side of SAP. And you have finally the banking ledger. So this is where you create your banks which you do for outgoing payments, incoming payments, checks, outgoing checks, incoming checks, anything relevant to the banking transactions comes under the banking module. So these are the 5 components of the SAP FI modules. Let's look at the SAP CO module. The CO module supports the process of planning, reporting and monitoring the operations of the business. It mainly looks at managing the costs. Whereas we saw FI module looks at the transactions of an organization, the CO module's focus is to manage the costs and looks at increasing the profitability. So the subcomponents of the CO module revolves around cost elements. Cost elements is actually a mirroring of the GL accounts, but specifically for revenue and expense accounts. So CO module is more towards the P&L statement or the income statement of an organization. So that's why the revenue and expense accounts are usually mapped as cost elements. Then you have cost centers. Cost centers, mostly the divisions or departments of an organization, are mapped as cost centers. The company's business lines is called the profit centers. So profit centers, you will get both revenue and costs, whereas in cost centers only the expenses are usually posted. So any business lines, for example, if you take a multinational company like Unilever, they might have many business lines: health care, personal care, soaps and detergents, beverages. So these all can be different profit centers. Internal orders, you might not have heard about this terminology before. Internal orders in SAP is used to monitor short-term projects or small objects. For example, if you have a fleet of vehicles and you want to monitor those fleet of vehicles individual costs of each vehicle, then you can create them as internal orders. Similarly, if you have a small marketing campaign or some promotion activities, you can create them as an internal order and monitor their costs. Profitability analysis, just like the word says, it deals with analyzing the profitability of your products. Rather than just looking at the profitability of each product, you can go into more detail and look at at each region, how's your profitability. In each country, how's your profitability. For each customer type, what is the profitability of your products. For each distribution channels, you can decide what's the profitability of your products. And then you can even go into more detail for this customer in this particular country, in this particular region, how much profitability am I making for my products. Product costing deals with analyzing the cost to produce your items. So this will help you to manage the cost of your production. By minimizing the cost or to optimize the efficiency, the processes, you can analyze the cost, put a plan value, put a budgeting value, and see how much your variation is between the costs. Overall, the CO module deals with managing the costs and increasing your profitability. And all these components aid for that process. Let's look at the prerequisite to learn the SAP FICO certification course. To learn SAP FICO, you don't have to have an accounting background or do an accounting degree, but just the basic knowledge of accounting principles should be enough to start you off. For example, what is debits? What are credits? How are the journal entry postings happening between debits and credit postings? What is a balance sheet account? What are the entries recorded in the balance sheet? What is an income statement account or the P&L statement account? How are the entries recorded in that? Some basic business terminologies like vendor, customer, inventory, revenue, expenses, profit, cost centers, assets. If you just know these kind of terminologies and know some basic accounting principles, That should be enough to get you started off in the SAP FICO course. Now, having an accounting background will of course be helpful, and further towards progressing your career in SAP environment, it will help you a lot. But the SAP certification course is generally focused on specifically configuring and using the SAP module for financial transactions. Let's look at the scope for SAP FICO. Now, there are two parts which you can follow. One is from the business side of things. Other one is in a consulting path. Let's look at the business path first. You can join an end user firm. So end user firm is a non-consulting firm in their corporate finance team or any other finance related team, and then gain experience in using the SAP financial processes. Now, having the SAP certification will automatically give you the basic theoretical knowledge and some practical knowledge, but with the end user firm you'll get more real world applications. Most of the multinational companies, in fact, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Unilever, Reliance, BHP, Shell, in different industries, both government and corporate sectors, use SAP. One of the main advantages of having SAP is its integration with all the modules and produce real-time financial data. So working in a business environment will help you to gain more exposure in all the integration of SAP modules and have more practical applications. Especially working in a finance team, you'll be working heavily on the FI module. The CO module will be more towards manufacturing environments, where they try to analyze the cost of their products, and also you'll be working closely with the sales team to try to market more in regions where your profitability has not increased. Another path is a consulting path. If you want to pursue a career as an SAP FICO consultant, then it's best to join a consulting firm. Probably they take as a graduate intake or associate consultant level, and you can progress towards becoming an SAP consultant, senior consultant, team lead, project manager, and so on. Some of the good consulting firms around worldwide are Accenture, IBM, Capgemini, Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, Deloitte, some of the other auditing firms. Plus you also get a lot of smaller companies doing consultancies as well. Pursuing an SAP certification gives you the accreditation from SAP that you are a certified associate consultant or certified solutions consultant. It's also a worldwide recognition because it's directly from the vendor, and more importantly, you get the knowledge of how to use the system and get a good grasp of the theoretical and conceptual understanding of the FICO modules. Let's look at the role of an SAP FICO consultant. Now, the role of an SAP FICO consultant goes towards in different stages of an implementation and support phase. To explain this, I have used the ASAP methodology. So the ASAP methodology stands for Accelerated SAP Methodology. It's recommended by SAP to go through these 5 phases during an implementation. Now these 5 phases can take anywhere between 4 months to even 2 years. Depends on how far the project has to go on the needs of an organization. Let's look at the first phase, project preparation. Just like its description, is to prepare this project. It's where you do your project planning, define the procedures and processes, decide how many members are needed in each team, when you need to start off the training, and which day you're planning to go live, to have an official kickoff session, do all the basic communication between your staff members, and so on. So this is mostly dealing with the project preparation. Next stage is very important, and I would say one of the most critical stages is the business blueprint. This is the design of your whole SAP implementation. So in business blueprint, you're going to discuss with the users and analyze what is the current system doing and how do you want to go forward in SAP. Then you have to define the organization structure. These are the organization's departments and divisions, and also how you want to have each processes defined for each of these organizations in SAP. And anything which can't be done standardized in SAP, you have a gap analysis and you see what's other customization program you can do to overcome this situation. You produce a list of blueprint documents. This has a basic design of how SAP is going to do the procedures for this organization. Give it to the users and get their sign off. You also have something called a functional spec, which is given to the technical team for development. So this business blueprint phase is quite critical, because if you can get at least most of the processes right, you should aim to get everything as close to the real life example as possible. And if you can get the sign off from the users and they're quite happy at this stage, then you can start doing the configuration. That is called the realization stage. So configuration is actually where you use the SAP system and do all the configuration settings. So it's important to get the business blueprint phase correct, because once you start doing the configuration, you don't want to go back again to do any changes to the processes. It will be both costly and time consuming. So at the realization stage, mostly you'll be doing a lot of configuration and doing unit testing and integration testing. Unit testing is usually done by the consultant who does the configuration to make sure the system is working okay. And then you also have something called the integration testing. This is where you deal with the other consultants to make sure their modules are not affected negatively by your settings. After all the configuration and your unit and integration testing is done, then you are finally preparing to do all the other tests. So stress and volume tests, usually you try to see if the system can handle all the data loads. And you also do a lot of training to the users just before you go live. And you also help them to prepare test scripts, let them perform the transactions, make sure they're happy with all the testing. That's called the user acceptance testing phase. And then you start doing the data migration before you go live. This stage, you'll be defining these cutover strategies. So cutover strategy is defining at which date you want to go live, before the go live dates, how we are going to do the data migration, when you're going to do the transport settings, is all the configuration complete, is there any additional stuff needed, are you ready to go live, if there are any changes going to go live. So anything related to the critical go live stage is discussed during the cutover strategies. And if everything goes well, then you actually set a go live date. Usually you set during project preparation, but sometimes go live dates can be pushed based on these phases. And you set a go live date, and from that day onwards, the SAP system is live. So at the go live stage, you need to provide critical support to the users, because they're just starting to use SAP in a live environment, and there could be some hiccups down the way. But if everything goes well and you can provide good support, it should be a smooth go live. It's not over yet once you're gone live, because even after running SAP for a few months or down a few years, you would want to do some business improvements to SAP, and you also might have organizational structures coming which you have to do some changes to SAP as well. For example, you might buy a new company, then you have to set up the new company code and set up those transactions. You might have a new business line coming up, then you might have to set up new profit centers. You might have a reorganization structure, then you have to redefine all the cost centers and profit centers for your organization. So there will always be some other mini projects coming in, and these are all another continuous business improvement of your organization. So don't get too daunted by all these phases and role of an SAP consultant, because once you start off in a project, things will go smoothly and you will be given your job description of what you need to do. In some teams, you might be just under one phase. So you might be only in charge of doing business blueprint, or you might be only in charge of doing configuration, or doing only data migration, or only testing. In some projects, you might be doing from end to end, from project preparation to all the way to go live. So this usually on a career path of becoming an SAP FICO consultant, you will be involved in all these phases. It's quite easy once you start getting involved in SAP, even though at the beginning it might look quite daunting with all the new SAP screens and all these terminologies and all the work you got to do. But once you start working on SAP, you realize how good this system is and how well integrated it's with all the other modules, how real-time data is all processing, and you'll really get a good feel for the system. I hope you'll enjoy working on SAP, and good luck on building a career path on SAP.